Hi there, it's Zoe, and welcome to the first episode of the season we're calling Project You as Leader. Yeehaw! Let's get into it. So we decided to do this series because we're having a break. So we're loading up all these pre-recorded episodes available to you in the last week of December so you can digest them all at once, or you can savor them over the summer. Well, here it is in Australia, over the summer here in Australia, or in the winter season and holiday season up in the Northern Hemisphere. Whichever way you want, wherever you want, it's here for you. The idea behind this series is to take a deep dive into self-mastery. It's the theme for the quarter that we're doing with my high-level leadership program called Amplifiers. Now, Amplifiers is a collection of CEOs, managing directors, and senior executives from a number of different organizations in different sectors. And we come together once a quarter, face-to-face in Canberra, now that we can. Yay! And we meet up in between times virtually by webcast. There's also now a virtual option. So if you're not in Canberra, which a lot of the world isn't, you can still participate in Amplifiers in the virtual group, which is amazing, of course. So this quarter, focusing on Project You was having a look at some of the core fundamentals of what we need in order to be able to execute on our ambitions as amplifiers. Now, what the heck is an amplifier? The key transition you want to think of in your leadership journey is the journey between achiever and amplifier. There's many different developmental models, and the shift is patterned across against some of those models. So the difference between achiever and amplifier is this. Achiever is what we conventionally think as the pinnacle of leadership, somebody who can gather the troops, rally the troops, and execute on a plan to produce a particular result. Everything is good about that, and yet it has limitations. And the limitations we find at achiever is that we can get stuck in overwork. We tend to think of climbing one mountain after another, and we kind of get goal-oriented and results-hungry. And sometimes we may burn out in the process, and we may burn out other people. And we may start to look at others as simply as resources to get the job done. So there's plenty of limitations and Achilles heels related to the achiever stage. Essentially, the pain point that allows us to transition to a different way of leading is realizing that we can't do more in the same way. We can't just work longer hours in the same way to get better results. It just doesn't work like that. So what amplifiers have worked out that is different to achievers is that instead of working in a linear context, we need to operate in a complex context. So things are volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. That's the VUCA world with an extra E, the exponential one. So this year has taught us anything, it's that the world can be exponential in its experiences, i.e. the virus. So how, as leaders, do we contend with such a changeable world? Well, it's not like being an amplifier. The idea of setting a plan for 3 to 5 years and just methodically working through it doesn't work. There are things that happen, spanners in the works, that can throw our best laid plans out the window. So we need to learn how to be nimble and agile and adaptive. And that's really the secret sauce, the secret strategy of an amplifier. In terms of the critical skills needed to be an amplifier versus an achiever, there's two main ones. One is perspective. As amplifiers, we need to be able to see and read complexity. It's what I unpack in the first chapter of my latest book, People Stuff, which, by the way, is a multiple award-winning book. Thank you very much, the Australian Business Book Award crew, for giving me Book of the Year for People Stuff. That was an overt, direct plug for the book. I'm very pleased that I got nominated. And in the meantime, in it is a huge handbook for how to develop your perspective. And it's crucial that we do so. So our ability to see into complexity, to see far into the future, to consider trends far into the past, and to make wise and compassionate decisions, best of the heart, best of the mind, is the essence of the practice of perspective. And it just doesn't sort of bloom out of nowhere. We actually need to cultivate it. So that's the first critical skill we need to hone as we move into being an amplifier, is perspective. And the second one is people skills. Our ability to understand, first of all, ourselves, and then others is the next critical piece. how do we unpack the dynamics of people interactions? How do we get our finger on the pulse of what's going on when it comes to culture, when it comes to human interactions? And when we can see the patterns there, when we can know the patterns in people dynamics, we can manage the people. So those two skills, perspective and people skills, are the two areas that we need to master if we're going to move away from a linear, stable, contained context and really thrive in this volatile, crazy uncertainty that we've got going on here. So how does this all relate back to Project You? Well, Project You, what we want to do is come back to the core essentials of leading self. And no matter what your leadership context is, whether you're leading a global multinational, whether you're in global politics, or whether you are leading a family, this is a core essence of what we need to master, regardless of whatever context we find ourselves in. So composure is what we are after. And I did write a whole book on composure. That was my first book. I've taken the concepts in Composure, that book, and expanded them a little. And we're going to unpack 9 of the key elements of composure as we go through this fabulous series, Project You. Haha. So what do we need to talk about next? This is the first episode, so I'm giving you a big overview. What I think I want you to focus on first of all, though, is as we are looking into the past of this 12 months, which was nothing that we expected and nothing that we chose, and what we ended up with was interesting, to say the least. So have a think back on 2000 and what year are we in? 2020? 2020. And what did it mean for you? What word would you give to it? It might be a swear word. That's our initial response. But what was your experience through this? What were some life lessons that were critical for you as we made our way through the pandemic? So the first part of being an amplifier and exploring Project You is doing some reflection. And being a reflective practitioner serves us exceptionally well at whatever stage and whatever context we are leading it. Always be thinking and processing and figuring out what worked and what didn't, what was good, what wasn't, and what can I take from the experience and apply it to my life and leadership in terms of what's next. So the starting point for Project You is a bit of reflection, and next is intention. So I want to imagine that it's the end of 2021. So as I'm recording this, it is the first week of December in 2020. We've nearly put the nail in the coffin of this crazy year. And thinking forward to 2021, what would I like it to be? And unlike other times when I've done this reflective practice, where I had a certain amount of confidence in how the year might pan out, that confidence is somewhat lacking when it comes to 2021. The assumptions we made about 2020 were blown out of the water in the first month or two of the year. Who knows what will happen in 2021? And yet, we can still set an intention. So fast forward, it's December 2021. Imagine yourself there. You've had an extraordinary year. Let's use that descriptor. And along the way, you might have experienced some amazing things, had some incredible projects, been on a few adventures maybe, or maybe you've just stayed where you are and done some really deep thinking and just being where you are. Whatever it is, I want you to imagine yourself in that future now, and then write a descriptive paragraph of how you want the year to have unfolded behind you. What I mean by that, so imagine that it's the end of 2021. You're looking back on the year that has been. How do you want to have experienced it? How would you like to sum it up? What kind of feeling would you like for this year that's been? Okay, that's your first task in this very first episode of the Project You as Leader. So a little bit of reflection, a little bit of projection, and an overview of what it means to be an amplifier. All right, so stay tuned for the next episode where we will get on to unpacking the composure model, which is be, think, do, and the critical elements that is required, and getting into step 1. Dun, dun, dun. See you in the next episode.